First, find a very large tree fork and cut it off. Then use a saw to flatten each side of the fork. Repeat the process on both sides so you're left with a flat sheet of wood. Then trace whichever slingshot template you're going to use onto the wood using a Sharpie marker. Then roughly cut out the slingshot template. I wouldn't recommend using a scroll saw as I did for this, and a bandsaw or a coping saw would be much better. I just didn't have either of those at the time. Here it is after it's roughly cut out. Here I used a belt sander to flatten each side of the slingshot and ensure that it's an equal thickness. Now retrace on the template so you know where to start rasping. Lock the slingshot in a vise and then use a rasp to refine the shape of it. Here's what it looks like after it's shaped perfectly to the lines. Now for the laminations, I started by cutting out a thin piece of purple heartwood and then a thicker piece of some green exotic wood, and I will glue those onto the base of the slingshot using wood glue. Also make sure to clamp it up tight so it bonds well. Here's 24 hours later when the glue is completely dried. I then put it in the vise again and used a rasp to even out the sides. Here's what it looked like after that was done. I then rounded the edges of the grip to make it more comfortable to hold and rounded off the tips of the fork so the bands wouldn't rip. At this point, I was kind of unhappy with the look of it and decided to put on some more pieces of Purple Heart and Brazilian walnut wood. Again, I just laminated them on with wood glue and then clamped them up tight. Here's what it looks like after the glue has dried. I used the belt sander to perfect the shape of the lamination. And this was the result. Then I rasped a dip in the back of the slingshot for my fingers to rest in place. I also used some rotary sanding drums in a drill to smoothen everything out. Here's what the slingshot looks like after I've done some more work on it. Everything is all smooth, and I've cleaned up the laminations on the palm swell. But sadly, when I tried to carve grooves for the bands to attach, I messed up and...
视频前的你，如果存在房事时间短、勃起无力、硬度不够、中途疲软、阴茎短小、虚汗、阴囊潮湿、肾虚引起的腰酸背痛等男性问题，可添加中医老师微信8783400中药秘方调理，对症下药。记住中医老师问诊微信8783400，海内外患者朋友皆可免费咨询。
And then I rounded everything off again using the belt sander and a rasp. Here's what the slingshot looks like after that's all done. I also carved band grooves in the tips for the bands to attach. Then I decided that I wanted some brass pins in the slingshot to make it look better, so I started by drilling some 1/4-inch holes in the frame. And then I cut 5 brass pins using my bandsaw. Here it is with all 5 pins glued in with epoxy resin. I then ground down the pins using a belt sander. Then begin hand sanding. I started at 320 grit and went up to 2000 grit. Then apply boiled linseed oil and glossy polyurethane varnish for a clear, waterproof finish. This is what the slingshot looks like after the polyurethane is applied. Then use some very fine steel wool to smoothen out the surface. Instead of getting a super glossy look like I usually do, for this slingshot I'm going for a semi-gloss or semi-matte look, which will provide more grip. The final step is to take some paste finishing wax, spread it on a paper towel, and rub it on the slingshot. After that's done, let it dry for about 20 minutes, and then buff it off using a hand rag or another paper towel. And here's the completed slingshot frame. I hope you like it. Now I have attached a TheraBand gold band set onto this slingshot. If you want to see how to make a band set like this, then a link will be in the description below to a tutorial I made a couple months ago. Now it's time for a shooting test with this new slingshot using 1/4-inch ammunition at about 20 feet away. Now I'm at a different location, and using this slingshot, let's try to shoot that soup can from about 15 meters away.